Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 p.m. time for the news bulletin on Channel 2. I am Bethha, and starting off with the main headlines of the day. President Sisi witnesses the 2025 wheat harvest season at the Tab'a region in Matruh Governorate. Foreign Minister Abdul Ati takes part at third African Union-European Union ministerial meeting in Brussels. And Israeli attacks kill at least 19 civilians in Gaza, including week-old baby. Welcome back. The news in full. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Wednesday witnessed the 2025 wheat harvest season at the Tab'a region in Matruh Governorate. The head of the state called for more private sector participation in reclaiming new lands in Egypt, saying the state is investing heavily in building needed agricultural infrastructure. President Sisi also witnessed the launch of several new agricultural projects via video conference during the harvest season ceremony, and details follow.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Wednesday said reclaiming more new lands across the nation means enhancing ability to face challenges. The remarks were made by the president while he witnessed the 2025 wheat harvest season at the Tab'a region in Matruh Governorate. The head of the state attended the ceremony to celebrate the wheat harvest, a major national event known as Yellow Gold Season. The president asserted that widening agricultural lands needs 200 to 300,000 Egyptian pounds in infrastructure costs for one fadan. President al-Sisi also called for more private sector participation in reclaiming new lands. President al-Sisi also said the state aims at increasing and enhancing animal stock resources in Egypt. The president added that more baby milk production plants should be built in order to decrease milk imports. Over fish production, President al-Sisi said fishing in lakes should be prevented at certain times in order to improve fish quality, so the fishermen should cooperate with the state in this regard. The wheat season is seen as part of the state's strategic push for food security. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and Deputy Prime Minister for Industrial Development, Minister of Transport and Industry Kamil al-Wazir, among several other ministers, attended the event.
And following the wheat harvest ceremony, President Sisi made an inspection tour of Egypt's future industrial city. The tour is part of a follow-up on mega national projects that aim at boosting food security and increasing agricultural lands and utilizing farmlands to grow more crops to meet local demand and also for satisfying exporting needs. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Migration Badr Abdel Ati on Wednesday asserted that Egypt has profound faith in the comprehensive approach to maintain sustainable peace through support to national states and their institutions. This came during his speech at the general session entitled Peace, Security and Governance of the Third African Union-European Union ministerial meeting in Brussels. The foreign minister said that joint efforts are needed to build states' abilities in regard to facing challenges and achieving sustainable peace, and calling for supporting African Union and sub-regional African blocs in fields of early warning, dispute prevention and mediation. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Immigration and Expatriates Affairs Badr Abdel Ati today said that Egypt looks forward to promoting cooperation with Germany in the economic, political, trade and investment fields. Meeting with his German counterpart, Yuan Badi Paul, Abdel Ati reviewed Egypt's mediation efforts for resuming a ceasefire agreement and accessing humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Migration Badr Abdelghati also met his French counterpart Jean-Noël Barrot, where he stressed Egypt's keen interest in boosting cooperation with the French side. He called on private French businesses to benefit from Egypt's investment opportunities, which will help enhancing bilateral trade and economic ties. Egypt's top diplomat hailed France's supportive stance to the Palestinian legitimate rights. At a separate meeting on sidelines of the AU-EU ministerial meeting, Foreign Minister Badr Abdelghati appreciated distinguished Egyptian-Belgian ties, notably in economy, clean energy and education, and medicine and health fields. The meeting was held with Belgian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, European Affairs and Development Cooperation, Maxime Prévost. The top diplomat said Egypt looks forward to Belgian companies benefiting from investment guarantees presented to Egypt from the EU as part of the strategic partnership between both sides. Israeli attacks across the Gaza Strip overnight and early Wednesday left 19 people dead, most of them children, despite mounting international pressure over Israel to put an end. Doctors Without Borders said the volume of aid Israel had started to allow into Gaza was not nearly enough for the population of 2.4 million, describing it as a smoke screen to pretend the siege is over. MSF emergency coordinator in the South Gaza city of Khan Yunis said the Israeli authorities' decision to allow a ridiculous inadequate amount of aid into Gaza after months of an airtight siege signals their intention to avoid the accusation of starving people in Gaza, while in fact keeping them barely surviving. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas appealed to world leaders to take urgent and decisive measures to break the Israeli siege on the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip and bring in humanitarian and medical aid by land, sea and air. As part of a 3-day visit to Lebanon, Abbas called for resumed work towards an immediate and permanent end to the Israeli aggression, a release of all detainees and hostages, and a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza Strip. Abbas also hailed international rejection of Israel blockade and starvation of Gaza after the European Union ordered a review of its cooperation deal with Israel. EU top diplomat Kaja Kallas said that the European Union will review a pact governing its political and economic ties with Israel due to the catastrophic situation in Gaza. Kallas said a strong majority of the ministers meeting in Brussels favored such a review of the agreement with Israel, known as an association agreement. Diplomats said 17 of 27 EU members backed the review, which will focus on whether Israel is complying with the human rights clause in the agreement. Lebanon Health Ministry said that an Israeli strike killed a man in the south on Wednesday, the latest attack despite a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. The ministry said that an Israeli enemy drone struck a car in the coastal district of Tyre. It was the third consecutive day of Israeli attacks on Lebanon. Israel said that it killed 2 Hezbollah members over the past 2 days. Israel has kept up strikes on its northern neighbor despite the November truce that ended 2 months of full-blown Israeli war in Lebanon. Lebanon has called on the international community to pressure Israel to end its attacks and withdraw its remaining troops in southern Lebanon under the agreement. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced new details and initial funding for his Golden Dome, a missile defense shield system, with China accusing Washington on Wednesday of undermining global stability. Trump on Tuesday announced $25 billion earmarked for the project, which he said could eventually cost a total of around $175 billion and would be operational in about 3 years. He added that once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. He said that U.S. Space Force commander will lead the effort and that Canada has expressed interest in being part of it. Russian President Vladimir Putin visited Russia's Kursk region for the first time since Moscow claimed that it drove Ukrainian forces out of the area last month. According to the Kremlin, Putin visited the region bordering Ukraine the previous day. Ukraine, the U.S. and South Korea said that North Korea sent up to 12,000 troops to help the Russian army take back control of Kursk, and Russia said on April 26th its forces had pushed out the Ukrainian army. Meanwhile, Kiev officials denied the claim, and Putin's unannounced visit appeared to be an effort to show Russia is in control of the conflict, even though its full-scale invasion of its neighbor has been slow and costly in terms of casualties and equipment amid recent U.S. and European proposals for a ceasefire that Putin has effectively rejected. Russia intercepted 159 drones launched by Ukraine over 12 hours at several Russian regions, including Moscow. A defense ministry statement said the drones mostly targeted Russian regions bordering Ukraine and were launched from 8 p.m. Moscow time on Tuesday until 8 a.m. on Wednesday. The outrage came 2 days after a 2-hour call between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian leader Vladimir Putin failed to clinch a breakthrough toward the ceasefire in the three-year conflict. European diplomats have been pressing Moscow to agree to a truce, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused the Kremlin of stalling in order to continue its offensive. Secretary General of the Arab Chambers Union Khalid Hanafi said today that Egypt is more open to foreign investments. Hanafi made the remarks in a roundtable meeting of the Arab-German Economic Forum in Berlin, noting that the government procedures positively reflected the investors' confidence in the national economy. The union chief added that the government allowed a larger participation of the private sector in implementing pivotal projects after liberating the currency exchange rate and slashing inflation. The executive chief of the General Authority for Investments and Free Zones, Hussein Heba, said today that a government law on central funds and business zones aimed at facilitating the management of funds and investments of financial companies and institutions and also easing global trade, making of Egypt a central investment hub in the Middle East and Africa. The remarks came as the authority chief met the general director of the Hong Kong Investment Authority on the latter experience in the field, enabling to become the most significant of its kind in Asia, running investment funds and managing fortunes. He cited the similarity between Egypt and China in the huge status of the local market and its ability to contain large investment flows in various sectors. Egypt's bourse closed higher today amid heavy purchases by local investors and corporations on blue chips against profit-gaining activities by Arab and foreign investors. The market capital of listed companies crossed 2.2 trillion Egyptian pounds at the end of transactions after an average net trading of 59.2 billion pounds. The benchmark index EGX 30 rose 0.7% above the 31.836 point mark. The equal weighted indices EGX 70 and EGX 100 surged 0.3 and 0.4 respectively. Manchester United and Tottenham face off in the Europa League final in Bilbao today, with both clubs eyeing a golden ticket into the Champions League after historically poor seasons. The two teams have lost a combined 39 times in the Premier League, with 20-time champions United and embracing 16th in the table and Spurs 17th, a single spot after the relegation zone. The game is the 6th All-English final in European football history. And Manchester City gave Kevin De Bruyne a victory in his final appearance at Etihad Stadium as Omar Marmoush, Bernardo Silva and Nico Gonzalez scored in a 3-1 Premier League win over Bournemouth that saw them climb to third in the table. City have 68 points with one game remaining, 2 points above Newcastle United, Chelsea and Aston Villa in the nervy chase for a top 5 finish and Champions League qualification. Dear viewers, by that we come to the end of our news bulletin. Thanks for watching, and that was Basma Taha signing off.